Big thank you to those who responded to the Q&A. This is something I'm going to start doing. And the first question I got was from a gentleman who was asking me, what is the biggest reason a relationship breaks down? Well, I'm so glad that this person asked that question, because it doesn't matter who I work with, what the end result is or the outcome that an individual is looking for. I run the same coaching session. Now, what is that coaching session all about? Well, I run workshops as well as when I work with people individually, it's all about teaching them how to understand how they're wired. When you can understand how you're wired, then you can understand what some of your strengths are. However, also acknowledge that with those strengths comes weaknesses as well. And that's definitely what can be responsible for relationships breaking down, for conflict in the workplace. And so when I work with a lot of business owners and leaders, and it's still the same. I help them understand how they're wired. Now, when they understand how they're wired, it's then about helping them understand how others are wired. Because just because you see the world a certain way doesn't mean that everybody else does. And that's where conflict takes place, especially in personal relationships. So when I'm working with an individual, because there's been some kind of relationship breakdown, it's always looking at how they're wired. What are the traits of their wiring? What motivates them? What are their biggest fears? How do we learn to communicate with each other? Because when we don't understand each other, we make each other wrong. Now, you may relate to that in your relationship where you're trying to do things a certain way, but then your partner's frustrated by it. And then it can get a little bit dangerous, because some of the things that you want to do that your partner might not want you to do, you might meet somebody on the side who's like, that's awesome, you should do that, and then things can be birthed out of that. So we don't want people to go down an unhealthy path. And in the workplace, this is where gossip can be fueled, where people start to get together and start to talk about what they don't like about an individual, and then there's agreement with that, and so then all of a sudden it means that they must be right, that they feel this or feel that. But when you understand that an individual's weaknesses are often also their greatest strengths as well, and vice versa, some of your greatest strengths that people admire can also become your greatest weakness. So these Q&As aren't going to be long. So the short answer is, the best way to avoid a relationship breaking down is to discover how your partner is wired. But firstly, discover how you're wired, because then everything's going to make sense. And then for your partner, everything's going to make sense. And then it becomes a different dialogue, a different conversation to be had. Doesn't mean you're going to be without conflict, because my goodness, me and my husband, we still have, Barneys every now and then. But what's different, what's really different for us, is that we deal with it a whole lot faster. Okay, so when you understand how each other is wired, it doesn't mean that you just go on to live this blissful life. No, same in a workplace. You can still experience conflict. You just will learn to do it so much faster, and in a pleasant manner, and in a fun way, to the point where you can just kind of laugh at each other. So please keep bringing the questions on. Each week I'm going to put a little thing out there to say, hey, now's the time, I'm taking questions. And just as I get a chance to, I will respond. So there was somebody else who also wanted to discuss, how does she start saying no? Because she really struggles to say no because she feels guilty. So if that's you, then stay tuned, because I'll do another response to that another day. Bye, everyone.